Welcome to Southern Fried Baseball, brought to you by College Baseball Central, bringing you 90 feet closer to the greatest show on dirt. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back, college baseball fans. The out-of-conference charades that we have done the past few weeks are over. SEC play is here. It's for real. We cannot wait. Do not adjust your TV screens. Nick did not grow a mustache and beard there, but we called to the bullpen here. Matt Grissom, how are we doing today?
Doing well, other than Arkansas dropping game 4 to even the series with Stetson.
Yep, it was the Hogs' first out-of-conference, I guess, loss or tie since 2014. So I guess we can start with Arkansas. Matt, I know that we'll talk about Florida, we'll talk about LSU and the kind of woes, if you will. Do you think that this is a sign of what is to come for the Arkansas Razorbacks, or was this just a baseball is baseball kind of weekend?
Well, we'll go into the recaps. We'll go out of order here just to talk about those Razorbacks. I think the offense has had its issues for several years now. I think you always see a great pitching staff that Hobbs and Van Horn accumulate, whether it be fresh arms or, right out of high school or transfer portal arms. And pitching staff looks good. That's not my issue. The issue is we're paying TJ Pompey, I think, $400,000 a year to swing a baseball bat, and he swings at garbage. That's concerning. We've had some bright spots like Carter Rutenbar, we'll get into in a little bit with our players of the week, who showed some spark. But when you're looking at the heart of this lineup, if you've got Helfrich and Kojal and Souza and Aloy, you need them to have that production. You go out in game 1, you win 7-1. Van Horn said that it felt like it was 7-6. And then you have things go your way. You win 13-1 in game 2. You're thinking, all right, let's go out and close this out. And then, bam, you can't do anything on offense. And then really outside of today, just a couple of timely hits. They didn't really do anything good on offense today. Add that in with your DeCremer getting blown up, giving up, I think, 4 runs before he got out of the first inning. It was just bad. It was a bad recipe for disaster. And I'm nervous if I'm Arkansas to start SEC play, especially with Mississippi State coming to town. It's not like you get Missouri or, South Carolina. You're starting with a top 3 team.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a prove it series too, because I know Mississippi State, I know that they're top 5 in the nation, but you have to feel like they're still an underrated team based on what they've been doing the first few weeks. They have a massive, massive chip on their shoulder. As Mississippi State's always struggled up at Baum. I think the thing for me that's a little bit surprising with Arkansas is just it feels so boom bust. Like it feels like a travel team where when they want to be there, they're one of the best teams in the country. And then Sunday and Monday, it didn't look like they wanted to be there. I know that was the big thing for me was how is this team going to mesh? And that's what it really feels like from a lineup standpoint. It feels like a lot of selfish at-bats at times. Like there's times where this team's clicking and they take really, really aggressive at-bats like we saw in Arlington. And then today they compound bat at bat after bat at bat after bat at bat. You mentioned the runs per game. Pear has them at 125, so that's right in the middle at 6 runs a game, and they have not played a gauntlet in any sense of the word. It's going to be an interesting one. They do get a little bit of a lighter thing after Mississippi State as they play South Carolina. But, I mean, if this feels like just a confidence boost that they need this week before Mississippi State. Like, they need to have some good, hard practices, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm very concerned, and Mississippi State's pitching has looked good, and their offense has been really
explosive.
Good. Yeah,
I think is the word that I would use.
Really ugly Friday night, especially since we've seen Gackle already. You and I both in Arlington. He gives up those 2 hits in the right field to start that outing, and you kind of think, all right, maybe he's not the guy. Now he's settled down, but against who? That continues to be the question.
I think the thing for me is they need to get, like you mentioned, TJ Pompey and Micah New. I think that those are the two that they really got to start getting a ton of production, because it's not like Brumbaugh is going to suddenly turn it on and hit 350 in the SEC. Like, I feel like Dave Van Horn, with his glove and his arm strength, is almost punting that position. And if you're going to do that, you have to have people around him that deliver. And it feels like a very, very top-heavy Arkansas lineup.
Well, when you look at Murderer's Row there on the right side of that graphic, it was anything but. I think you alluded to it in the intro. This SEC slate was terrible this past weekend. I mean, maybe Wright State was the best team and the best games that we were given. But you look around the league, LSU really struggled. Florida struggled. Of like Alabama cruised. There's a couple other teams, Auburn, Georgia. They didn't really have any issues. As far as going into SEC play, who are you most confident of that they don't lay an egg in opening weekend?
I think for me, it's got to be Texas. I mean, they have the staff. I mean, you look at that score down there at the bottom. They've run rolled a ton of teams. They have the pitching staff depth. They have power numbers, and they play Ole Miss, who came to Texas 2 weeks ago, and I got to see, and they looked terrible, and they don't have a bullpen. I think Texas feels like the safest pick in the SEC. But to play devil's advocate, they haven't really played anybody. Who's there? I mean, I know that they'll play Texas State tomorrow, but if you look at it, their best one might be Lamar right now. Because, Coastal they faced without Fluky. That's the only thing for me is you can sit here and say Texas looks the best, but Texas hasn't really played anybody.
Yeah, a lot of untested teams. I mean, you look even for Arkansas, you lose to TCU. That TCU team doesn't even look the same now. Alabama's looked impressive. Georgia's looked really impressive.
I should say, Gris, I know a week later, I think the Arkansas State losses don't look as terrible, knowing that that's now a top 5 pitching staff. As Rob Rankings pulled the stats on that, so shout out to him for that. But would you have thought when you were watching that Arkansas would have the 4th best ERA in the nation?
I mean, Arkansas State, yeah, they were picked to finish 3rd, I think, in our Diamond report. I knew that they were going to have a solid team. I didn't think that they would upset Arkansas, but I mean, once you saw them play, they look dominant. I mean, they're a team that I feel like week in and week out you can make money on taking them because it's still fairly priced.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. But I just pulled it in Texas. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 run rolls for a team.
Yeah, it must be nice to have a good offense.
They are 10th in an ERA at .171, a batting average of 13th. So for as good as their staff has been, their hitting has been even better statistically. I mean, that's just a wild stat. Them and USC are the only 2 undefeated teams left. I forget the exact stat, but Saturday was the first time that they had even been trailing or tied in the 5th. Like, that's just how unreal dominant they've been. I guess it's a good transition into Texas. They don't have a lot of flaws. This feels like a lot of stuff that we're going to be nitpicking. But are Texas's biggest flaws internal at this point? Because they feel like they're just an unstoppable machine when they get rolling, that it's going to take something internal to kind of break this team up.
I mean, you look back at Schlossnagel's teams, they've always been anchored around a star on the mound, and they've got 3 of them. And I think
I would almost argue they have 4.
Yeah, that's going to take them as far as they want to go. I mean, I look back at the run with A&M that he had with Prager and Lampkin. Like, these guys are better than those guys, and look what he did with A&M. I mean, they were a rally away from winning it all against Tennessee, and I think now you're maybe not as good top to bottom on offense as that A&M team, but the pitching staff is going to make up for that.
I don't know. I mean, you look at it like Timo Becerra's hitting at an unreal power number. Mendoza's put on 10 pounds, hitting unreal power numbers. Robbins. I mean, like the work that this staff has done with the offense, I think, is incredible. I mean, it might be one of the best offenses I've seen. And at this point, I think I've seen half of the SEC teams.
Yeah.
Again, I saw them against Coastal, so it wasn't like the best pitching staff. But, I mean, you have to feel like those power numbers are going to translate into SEC play.
Yeah, they will. And going into that, Georgia, as far as hitting the ball, I don't know if there's a better team. And now this piecemeal pitching staff that Johnson's put together at Georgia, I mean, they look good. When I put Dylan Vigil as my player of the week, I mean, I watched him at Michigan and he was okay. But, I mean, if you're talking about a guy that was Michigan's Friday night arm for at least the start of the season, and now he's your Sunday guy at Georgia with Voltko and Matt Scott, Kei Naoki. Like, Georgia looks very dangerous. I just don't know if they have Fugazi stats because they play weak competition. That's the team that I've kind of got circled as then they were my wait and see team in the Diamond Report. I've got to see more. I've got to see it against good competition. This Bulldogs team looks very complete right now.
Yeah, I mean, they get Tennessee this weekend, but just reading off some pair stats, 5th in runs per game, 4th in batting average, 2nd in OPS. You can talk about the strength of schedule, but I think for a team like them, and I know we talked about it, Nick and I, about 2-3 weeks ago, that with all the transfers that they brought in, I felt like they just needed to get confidence. And with this pitching staff, they're just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And you have to feel like Wes Johnson's going to coach them up. You have to feel like they're hungry. They have some unfinished business. But here's kind of the weird one. They're 2-2 against quad 3 games. Haven't played a quad 2 game, and they're 1-0 in quad 1 games. So, I mean, they like even by SEC standards, they have not been tested at all. But if you look at some of these common opponents like Oakland, they looked better against Oakland than Tennessee and A&M did. Queens, I think, didn't South Carolina play them really tough a few weeks ago? They looked better than against Queens.
Beat South Carolina.
Like, that's the thing, is it's some of these teams, and again, the other part too, they played 4 games against Queens, and we've seen, like we saw with Arkansas, what happens when you play. Like, it is extremely, extremely hard to line up and beat a team 4 times. And that's the thing with Georgia that I keep coming back to. I know that I was higher on Georgia preseason. I've been very, very low on them to kind of try and send a message, but they might be, I think, the most dangerous team in the SEC outside of Texas for me.
What are your thoughts on Tennessee? They play a really tight series with Wright State, could have lost really all 3 of those games, and then they finally do lose Sunday. You pair that with the losing the series with Kent State. Like, are you panicking if you're a Tennessee fan?
I would say that for the team that has the record that they do at 12-4, they feel like the most paper tiger. Because when you watch them against Virginia Tech, Arizona State, and UCLA, again, it's not apples to apples and you're getting different guys, but they looked better than A&M against UCLA, but they looked the worst against Virginia Tech, and they looked the worst against Arizona State. And the other weird thing for me was when you watched A&M, UCLA, and Mississippi State, it felt like the balls flew a little bit further. It almost reminded me of like a 6A high school game versus like a 5A high school game in Texas. Like, it felt like the balls just didn't travel as far. Like Levi Clark's sack fly that he hit pretty deep. I felt like if that was a Mississippi State guy or an A&M guy, like they hit that out. That's the thing that really kind of scares me about this Tennessee team is they looked like a step below Mississippi State and Texas A&M and Arlington, in my opinion.
The other elephant in the room, Florida, had really good numbers coming into it. Looked like maybe they started figuring it out, and then you lose a series to High Point. Could have been swept had that pitcher been able to locate the zone at all.
So I wrote an article that's going to be coming out about the upsets of the week, and it was me ripping into LSU, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and then me at the start kind of going, okay, like this isn't really that bad. This is more the game humbling them after they kind of probably got a little bit too high after Miami. But I should say the defense that we saw in Aiden King's start and the defense that we saw in Liam Peterson's start took me back on opening night when Liam Peterson was bad. and then you went and watched it, and it's like, well, no, like the defense didn't really help them out at all. Like that defense, and again, fielding ground balls, errors, making plays gets amplified in SEC play. And that really was what High Point was able to do Saturday and Sunday, is just punish Florida for errors. And that's something that kind of makes me feel like there's a lot of red flags around Florida, is they don't have the punchy lineup of a Cags or White Langford that they've had in years past. Yes, they have a good staff, but they don't play defense like some of these quote-unquote athletic teams. Like they're not as athletic as OU. They're not as athletic as Kentucky. I would even say they're not as athletic as like an LSU. It feels like they have to have everything go their way. Granted, they do have 3 frontline horses, but it feels like they're going to get taxed a ton with that rotation with the defense that's played behind them.
All right. You mentioned Oklahoma. We saw them in Arlington. They looked really good. Are you buying them as a team that can still make a threat to the SEC?
I think that you do, just because of the staff. It feels like 4 weeks in that all of the kind of hesitancy that everybody in the country had around Cam Johnson and the walks, I feel like we can kind of put those to rest with the starts that he's turned in. I feel like LJ Merciless behind him too is another guy that's a high quality Saturday starter. And then the lineup, I think that they have the almost exact opposite problem that LSU has in left field, where anybody, it seems like, that they put out there in the outfield just hits. And it feels like a fight at the bat rack where it's 5 guys for 3 or 4 spots with the DH. And, Nolan Stevens sometimes pitching. But they feel a lot like they did last year with Oklahoma with, the Witherspoon twins and then Crossland. I feel like they're going to be a really, really tough out where they can beat anybody any given weekend. But there's also going to be weekends like we saw last year. Remember where LSU just went up there and just swept them on the road, no-hit them, run-rolled them? I feel like it's going to be a totally boomer bust Oklahoma team. Is that kind of how you feel with them?
Yep. We've seen this before, and I try not to get too high off the one outing I watched in Arlington to say this team is going to be good. Can we get some Auburn love? Yeah, I've been high on Jake Marciano. I think you had another really good outing by him in game 1. He is going to direct your success in the SEC. If he can continue to show up and pitch as well as he has already this season, I think, getting that game 1 win on Friday night is so critical in the SEC. And you look around the league and there's some good arms, but I don't know if any of them you can definitely say is better than Marciano and Auburn.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of guys with more higher ceilings, but I think with what Auburn's trying to do, like with what Butch has done, like for reference, I have Auburn 3rd in my power rankings and 3rd in the country, just because I have them in Texas flip-flopped. The kind of struggle that they had against Youngstown State, they've really kind of flushed that. It seems like the team that went to Arlington week 2, and dominated up in Arlington since then. I know that they had that little kind of hiccup with the bullpen but remember that Youngstown State weekend back week 1 where the bullpen went like 30 innings with allowing 1 run? I don't think there's very many teams in the country that have the depth that they do out of that bullpen, and they get Missouri to kind of open the SEC play. That one for me is going to be a really, really big prove it series when Texas comes to Plainsman in week 2 in SEC play. But as of right now, I know that Mississippi State's stealing all the headlines. Texas is stealing all the headlines. Auburn has to feel like the most underrated SEC team, in my opinion. They're not flashy. They don't have an Ike Irish that steals all these headlines. You just kind of pencil them in. I mean, they're 13-2 right now. And they lost a midweek to a high-quality Troy team. So if you look at the weekend series, they look good.
That's kind of how I feel about Kentucky flying under the radar here. They're not going to beat you with Nick Mingione's teams don't. They do it with great pitching and, solid infield play. Jackson Jelkin is another guy Friday night that I feel like Kentucky's got as good of a chance to win every series opener with him going on Fridays. And to kind of follow that up, a team that you thought was going to be good because of a Friday night guy, I'll say Connor Fennell. Yes, he had a good outing this past weekend, but against North Dakota State. I think Vandy is going to be your boom or bust team. Their offense is either going to look great, like we saw flashes of in Arlington, or they're going to completely lay an egg like I saw in Las Vegas. And unfortunately for me, I've seen more Vanderbilt games now than I've seen Arkansas games. But I think they're two sides of the same coin. I think Arkansas and Vanderbilt both are going to struggle offensively and going to have to rely on that pitching staff. And it's just going to kind of be who breaks first. And I think both of them have shown that while they have a lot of depth out of the pen, it may not be quality arms that they can throw to keep a Florida or Georgia or Texas lineup at bay.
So the thing for me about Vandy, and just as a little preview, I have them 16th in the SEC right now for power rankings. I think they're the worst team in the SEC.
Wow.
But I was talking to a Texas guy. I think that's the hardest Texas series because it feels like they are so boom bust that I hate to bring up bad memories, Grissom, but remember Arkansas where they would get a purple Big 12 team?
Yep.
Where just when you thought that they could kind of wiggle out of it, they would hit a home run, and it's like, wow, yeah, Arkansas is not scoring 5 runs. That's how I feel like Vandy could kind of get one of these Texas pitchers in back-to-back games as they kind of chip away, get a late home run, and the bullpen kind of holds it together. But the flip side of that is I'm not sure I would pick Vandy confidently to beat anybody in the SEC in a series. I know that sounds ridiculous, and Vandy was, for the better part of my childhood, the gold standard of college baseball. But, I mean, that staff just feels so boom bust. The lineup, it's very, very top heavy. And it's weird because it's such an old lineup. It's such a veteran lineup. But it feels like a lot of guys that are just getting their beak wet with SEC play. And they're getting, I think, exposed. It just doesn't feel like a Vandy team of old.
All right. Are there any other teams other than LSU that we have not mentioned?
Missouri. I think that's the best story in sports right now that no one's talking about. I know that sounds ridiculous, and there's probably people that are rolling their eyes in the comments, but Missouri's 14-2 and lost on opening night to Mount St. Mary's. So if you really think about it, they've won 14 of their last 15. And everybody's going to roll their eyes and say, oh, well the only team that they've played has been Florida Atlantic, who beat them. But, I mean, they were 8-8 at this point last year. They went and played in an HBCU tournament and got run ruled. North Dakota State, who, again, beat Vandy, they swept them. Again, we talked about how tough it is to sweep 4 games. I mean, Jay Johnson literally mentioned that in a press conference with the scheduling. That was kind of what he hinted at, is it's tough to play 4 games in a row. And Missouri played 4 games in a row and swept, not like a slapdick, if you will. It wasn't like it was an HBCU. Like USC should have beat them and they came back. I think Missouri's one that people need to be talking about more. They're 6th in runs per game. They play kind of a Kentucky-esque style of baseball that's not going to slump, in my opinion. So that's the thing for me is, it's not going to be 3 free weekends for everybody, or 3 free wins for everybody not named A&M. Like, Missouri has the talent to not only win games but win series, in my opinion.
So Missouri won that game. They were down 12-1 and came back to win
13-12.
Got the score wrong on that. Now I'm looking at it. What day was that?
I think that was Sunday.
The 7th. So Saturday. So that 13-2 is not right. I missed the one. 13-12.
Yes, it was that game.
Yeah, I mean, down 12-1, you think, all right, it's over. Or at least I would, like for Arkansas, you ask them to score 13 runs. No, not happening.
I mean, think of all the SEC teams that would punt and start bringing in guys too. But I mean, they chipped away.
A lot of resiliency for the Tigers.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is everybody's kind of rolling their eyes on them and saying, like, kind of giving them the Texas treatment of, oh, they haven't played anybody. They don't have a star, but I mean, like, 3 in the 4th, 1 in the 5th, 4 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th. So not only did they come back and win, but they didn't even need a walk-off. And, when you allow 3 run, like a 9-run second inning and come
Yeah.
back, I mean, first off, the pair aspect of it, of getting kill shotted and then coming back and, returning, I guess 5 kill shots 5 innings of kill shots is a Columbia now. But I mean, the bullpen was phenomenal to have a comeback like that. Your bullpen has to be phenomenal. They can hit. I mean, like I said, if you score double-digit runs against anybody, you can hit. So that's the one thing for me. I know that you talked about Kentucky, but I kind of wanted to bring 2 things up too. You mentioned Jelkin, but Cleaver on Saturday night has been every bit as advertised too as well. And then for me, I know that Tyler Bell is going to be DHing, and he's probably not going to be 100%. And, he's a skinny glove first guy. But I feel like the lineup just could kind of take a deep breath with Bell back in the lineup. I know Hindle won SEC Player of the Week with the suits. It feels like when he's back in the lineup, like everybody can kind of breathe a little bit easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he poses the threat, and I think that's big when you're talking about a Kentucky lineup that really doesn't have a big stud. He was kind of their guy coming in that was going to anchor that cleanup role. And I mean, for what he was, he made my Player of the Week. For coming back off an injury and having the kind of weekend he did, that spoke volumes to me as far as how productive he can be for this Kentucky Wildcats lineup.
Yeah, and I think along the same lines with me, just to change gears, Talmadge LaCroix at South Carolina. I know that everybody's kind of going to point to how bad South Carolina's been after the Army loss, but I mean, if you really think about it, I wouldn't put South Carolina to bed so early. Like, they lost 2 of 3 to a Clemson team, which, again, Texas hasn't played somebody at Clemson's level. Missouri hasn't. Like, Auburn really hasn't. I mean, it's a top 10 Clemson team that South Carolina played really, really tough. Talmadge LaCroix's, he added 4 hits. He was 4 for 6 as he sat on Sunday. But I think that, I mean, he was hitting under 200, had an injury-plagued year last year, is able to come back, and now he's hitting over 400. If South Carolina can figure out some of their pitching woes, which at this point it's been about a month since they lost a Friday night guy, so you've probably gotten a little bit more comfortable with your new Friday night guy. I'm not saying South Carolina is going to make a regional. I'm not saying Palmineri isn't going to get fired at the end of the year. But, I mean, this was a top 5 portal class for a reason. I think that they're starting to figure themselves out. They're starting to get a little bit more consistency at the plate. I think for me, if they can get Bo Hollins rolling, this feels like a dangerous, by their standards, South Carolina team.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and share with you an ad from Home Field Apparel, and then we'll talk about the LSU Tigers because we got to talk about them. Before we get back to the action, we've got to tell you about the best gear in college sports. The place to go is Home Field Apparel. Check out the Diamond Classics collection, high-quality throwback jerseys for your favorite team. From the Arkansas Razorbacks to the Vanderbilt Commodores, Home Field has you covered. Home Field's the only apparel partner of College Baseball Central. Gear up for game day by visiting homefieldapparel.com. Real quick, we've got a comment, Ball fan, who was upset we didn't sweep right until I realized what everybody else did. Yeah, they were clinging on to a top 25 spot in my poll that I submitted. I was bold enough to drop LSU out, dropped Arkansas 9 spots, would have dropped them more had I known that they were going to lose today. But Tennessee, yeah, you played Wright State really close for 3 games, and hats off to you. You pulled it together, didn't Kent State it. But I just I don't know about any of these SEC teams, but one for sure that I'm ready to go ahead and say LSU's not making it to the postseason.
Well, Gris, before we move on to LSU, a little bit of a silver lining with the Home Field plug. Tennessee got a pretty good basketball sweatshirt from Home Field. So if you're feeling a little bit sad from the weekend series, just go look at the home field Tennessee collection. That'll kind of cheer you up.
Well, I did a who is the better team side by side with Arkansas State. Both sitting at 12-5. Arkansas State's got the better strength schedule, RPI. They've got the same amount of quad one wins. They're both 2-1. Batting average, LSU's got the advantage, but ERA and run differential, it's Arkansas State. Yet here we are entering league play, and Arkansas State has a chance now with Fluky and them being down for Coastal. You could be talking about the future Sun Belt champ, and LSU. I know we like to say midweeks don't matter, but this is more glaring. This was not a
and
midweek.
They're running out weekend arms than midweeks. That's the other part. I know that they're kind of getting a little bit weird, but I mean, Guidry pitched a lot against UL. UL is another one that's, I would like to, just like Arkansas State beating Arkansas is a little bit of like, oh yeah, they're not as bad as like a Milwaukee. But I said it last week that that's going to be a humbling weekend. I mean, UL is a team that has nothing. These are gritty kids that kind of, water hose boys, if you will, that just, we're going to outwork you. And LSU, and they just they looked like they wanted it more. And this reminds me a ton of that 24 LSU team early. Because if you remember correctly, they kind of got hot late. And this feels like one where they're just not trusting Jay Johnson. I know that the bullpen, I'm sure that there's guys that aren't happy with their roles as bullpen, but they got to figure out what they're going to do with Stanfield. They have to figure out. It just feels like a revolving door where it worked out great last year because I think they had so many mature guys. But this year it just feels like none of these guys can get a rhythm. And the guys that are in playing every day, like Curiel, Brown, and Milam, are in rhythm. And the guys that aren't playing every day just aren't in rhythm.
It's going to be a tough task going to Vanderbilt Friday night. We're going to see what this LSU team is made of. Because if you drop a single game to Vandy, you got to be thinking, all right, this team's just not very good. You look at the LSU message boards right now, they're not happy.
Did you see the video with that podcast with Milam about how Milam's the most overrated player in the SEC?
No, I didn't see that.
Well, they said that basically, which I do not agree with. His strikeouts are down. His average is down. But that's the kind of fans that LSU has. And I know that there's a lot of LSU fans in my quote that are saying this isn't how LSU fans feel. I mean, it takes a special, special player to play at LSU. Jake Brown's done it. Milam's done it. But there's a lot of guys that are not used to that kind of scrutiny. Like Dardar at Kansas State is not used to that kind of scrutiny. York at Grand Canyon is not. Like, this is one where you really need a leader to kind of step up and be a consistent force, be a voice in the dugout. And again, we're not sitting in the dugout. We're not sitting in these meetings that Jay Johnson has, but I think that that's what LSU really needs is a leader. Because again, it's not going to get any easier. If you remember correctly, in 2024, crazy LSU fans were calling for Jay Johnson to be fired. Like, it is an unreal place to play college baseball, both good and bad. And I think that's the thing that really scares me about this LSU team is it's really easy to kind of go on Twitter and see everybody trashing you and lose confidence, in my opinion. I mean, they sit 12-5, and if you remember correctly, they looked like the team on fire after that Jacksonville series. I mean, they beat Kent State, but when you kind of go back and remember some of it, I know they run-ruled Milwaukee, but they didn't really look that sharp. It's one of those things where they've been able to out-hit a lot of their deficiencies. And when they're not hitting, they look terrible. I mean, these are not high quality. Like, these are not. I mean, they're 8-4 in Q4 games. Like, it takes a step up. That's the part that I think is going to really get LSU. Is it's pretty easy to get up for these SEC games, but I mean, we saw it with A&M last year, where you can blink and suddenly you're 0-6, 0-9 in the SEC, and you just can't dig yourself out of a hole like that.
My concern is the pitching staff. They don't they don't have a Cade Anderson, Anthony Einson, Paul Skeens. This is kind of where Jay has hung his hat on having a solid Friday, Saturday 1-2. He doesn't have that right now. Kason Evans has not looked good.
I think Kason Evans feels like a really good Saturday guy, and Cooper Moore feels like what would be a typical LSU Sunday guy. Like, it feels like they're missing, and again, they're missing a Dylan Volantis. They're missing a Tegan Coons at Tennessee. Like, I think it takes a special kind of animal to be an SEC Friday guy, and I don't feel like LSU has just that, something that you can't teach, bravado, Liam Doyle strutting off the mound after you strike somebody out. I just don't think LSU has that. But for me, the thing that kind of makes me feel good about the pitching staff is I feel like once they buy into Yeskie and once they buy into Jay Johnson, the pitching staff will kind of start to figure itself out a little bit. Because, again, Jay's won 2 of the last 3 national championships. Yeskie's led great staffs everywhere he's been. I mean, the A&M team he took in 24, he took with like 4 pitchers. So, I mean, he doesn't really need a lot. Like, he's really great at getting the most out of guys. It's just you need somebody to kind of step up and be a Friday night dog.
Well, lead into your player of the week with Mr. Jake Brown. Maybe he can give that offense the spark that they need, be a leader. Tommy White ain't walking through that door, but maybe Jake Brown can lead him up.
Yep, Jake Brown had 3 homers on Friday. He added multiple hits on Saturday and Sunday. He's a guy that I think is going to be a real – he reminds me a little bit of Ashton Larson as a true freshman, where when everybody else is kind of struggling, being boom bust, he's kind of that consistent bat that you're going to get a ton of production out of. The thing that really impresses me is even when he gets outs, he takes really, really competitive at-bats. That was why I had him there. Thomas LaCroix, again, we talked about earlier, as another guy that was kind of more of a season award, as I think he's not getting the love that he deserves. Granted, he did go 4 for 6. And then Daniel Jackson from Georgia had just another monster weekend. It feels like we could almost pick 5 or 6 guys from Georgia's. I went back and forth between Jackson, Branch, Trey Phelps. I know that you went with a pitcher, but it gets a little tougher for Georgia this weekend, but you have to feel like they've, dominated the slate that was put in front of them.
Yeah, I'm always going to go pitching heavy. I tried not to today, just did Dylan Vigneault as the best player of the week for me because, again, you come over from Michigan, what are the expectations? 7 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts. That's just something you didn't really see him do at Michigan, so hats off to Wes Johnson for getting that right. And then Tyler Bell, again, coming off injury in 3 games. 5 hits, 4 RBIs. He was consistent, had a hit in every single game, had multi-hit games. This is what you need out of the anchor in your lineup. And then the unsung hero of a dying Arkansas offense, Carter Rutenbar, true freshman, came in from Midlothian, Texas, had 3 appearances in game 2, 3, and 4, totaled 5 hits, 2 runs, and 3 walks. He was really he had 4 hits today. He was the spark, but we didn't have anybody else on base to get them home. So it was kind of all for naught, but he's got to figure out he's a backup catcher right now and nobody's taking that job from Ryder Helfrich. So they've got to figure out how to get him into this lineup because I think he's special and can give. When you're looking at Pompey, who's struck out, I think 46 times in 72 at bats, you got to find some rhythm somewhere. And if it comes from a true freshman, so be it. He's got to be in there.
Where would you play him? Would you DH him?
He was playing left field. He was talking to Van Horn about playing over in left field some. So I mean, look, these guys, Dave said it. He said most of the guys that they recruit has played shortstop at some level. So they're just baseball players. He's going to find a spot. If he continues to swing the bat like he is, he'll find a spot out there. I think Cahillo is liability in right field. I think you've got to DH him. Souza's not 100% still, but he played around with the lineup today. I think Pompey got the start at short. Brumball has looked really bad. He's another sub 200 average guy right now. They've just got to figure out a spark, and Rutenbar has given them one.
I should say Ruiz doesn't exactly have the arm to play right field. That's kind of the other little caveat is, if you remember correctly on opening night, for as bad as Eloy has been in the outfield and the fly balls and everything, like he played right field over Ruiz, who played left field. So it's not like – I feel like they have a lot of guys, but not a guy. Like you said, Brumball is hitting under 200. He's a freshman. I feel like you have to take kind of your lumps. It's assumed that you're going to take lumps with freshmen, and you got to have somebody step up behind him. Rutenbar, again, he's going to have his lumps as a freshman, and you got to have somebody step up around him. Where would you rank Arkansas power ranked right now in the SEC?
Probably 12th, 13th.
12th? I was going to say, I have them 1, 2, 3, 4. I have them 5th, just above Florida and A&M. I have LSU behind that group. For me, I keep coming back to what they did in Arlington, where, they looked like at times the best team in the country. The staff, again, Gackles, you're going to live with the highs and the lows with him. I'm not quite ready to hit the panic button on Arkansas. And the other thing, too, is I feel like that schedule has kind of been a little bit easier than some of these other teams. That'll be the real interesting discussion, is when you have like an Arkansas who goes 6-0 against some of these down SEC teams versus, Tennessee, who's got to go to Mississippi State and LSU, kind of what that looks like.
Well, this Mississippi State series is going to tell us a lot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know that we touched on Ole Miss when we talked about Texas, but what do you think of Ole Miss? They feel like they're completely under the radar. They had a bad weekend in Houston that everybody's kind of just assuming that that's what they are. Do you think that they're better than the weekend that they had in Houston, or do you think that that's a sign of what's to come? Because as you may recall, they got they lost an extras to Baylor when the bullpen couldn't hold it. They beat Ohio State, and then Coastal again had a terrible, terrible weekend. Had a Sunday salvage where they just blew them out. What do you think of Ole Miss?
Team Sierra is good. 217 as a team. Weighted runs are 132, so they're hitting better than average. You would like to think that this is going to be good, a good Ole Miss team. I think Hunter Elliott has solidified himself as a Friday night guy in the SEC that you can't sleep on. I just don't know. I need to see them compete. Who do they play this weekend?
Texas.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's not going to be a good litmus test for them. Because if they go 0-3, do we really – I think we know more about Texas in that sense than we do Ole Miss.
And, again, you look at Tristan Becerra, Will Furnace, Judd Udemark. Like, these are guys that, like, bang the ball around the yard. In Texas, if you get the wind a certain way – we saw what it did the Georgia series last year where it felt like a kryptonite and Georgia couldn't figure out a second way to win. Like, it could really kind of unravel quickly. Like, you're not going to luck into 3 runs like you would at like a Vandy, or even when they're at home with how that ballpark plays. So that's the thing for me, is I won't know a ton more about Texas. It's not like if Texas sweeps them, I'm moving them up above 3. And it's not like I'm going to hit the panic button if you're Ole Miss. If they should steal 1. I feel like if they steal 1, I'll feel really, really good about Ole Miss.
Yeah, but which one do they steal? As we kind of wrap it up, give me 10,000-foot view of this series.
Ruger Riojas versus Hunter Elliott. I think that's the one you got to steal, because I don't think you're stealing Sunday against Dylan Volantes.
Yeah.
I'm really curious how long they put up with Luke Harrison in Saturday. Not that, I know that he was bad this past weekend, but I feel like he's going to go out and shove. It feels like a lot of these SEC guys, when they have a bad weekend, they bounce back immediately. So you really can't count on Luke Harrison having back-to-back bad starts. I think they got to win with Elliott. But, I saw Ruger Riojas against Coastal Carolina when he threw those 5 innings, career high in strikeouts. He's a mid to 97, I think is what he topped out at. And he probably threw his nasty changeup more so as the later innings went on. That's the part that's, I think, the scariest is you can't really hunt that fastball. I think Ole Miss, they got to steal that Elliott start.
Is that or Arkansas, Mississippi State, couple of the best series in the SEC this weekend? Just in case I'm not here with you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Preview.
I think A&M Oklahoma is a really, really good litmus test for both of those teams because the A&M pitching staff and OU's lineup, I think, is going to be a really kind of difficult one because OU makes you get all 27 outs every single game. And A&M's done a fantastic job of playing really good team defense. They've really kind of done a good job being on schedule when it comes with that.
So I almost brought this up. Because there's so much value in Hunter Elliott, do you try to throw him off your Friday?
No, because you don't know what you're going to get from Ruger Riojas. We've seen a few times where teams have tried to pitch off of it, and then that starter gets shelled. So it's like, well, if like Ruger gives up 5 runs in 5 innings, it's like, okay, we could have gotten that out of Hunter Elliott. That's the part that always scares me. And then 2, you don't want to tax a bunch of – remember Tennessee when they won the national championship, how in a lot of those weekend series they would pitch off and go with an opener on Friday night?
Yeah, they didn't really have a Friday night guy.
That was such a risk. And I think Tony even talked about that the year after, about how much of a risk that is. But
Paid off.
I don't hate that, though, because I feel like if you're Ole Miss, you just want to get in there and steal one game. Because, I mean, that's the thing with SEC that we'll talk about is,
several good series, though. Alabama, Kentucky is going to be good.
Sweep at home and sweep at home and steal one on the road. You're probably going to win the SEC with that recipe. Yeah, there's a lot of really, really good games. I mean, I think it's just because the SEC is the SEC and almost every game feels like it's good. But, I mean, Mississippi State, Arkansas, A&M, Oklahoma, let me pull up.
We're going to see a lot. We're going to be able to tell this show next week is going to be night and day different. Because now I feel like the SEC is kind of in the doom and gloom. Your Arkansas, Florida, LSU, who are typically at the top of the SEC, all lost. It's kind of like panic. But then if they all come out and they win their series next weekend, or really
LSU's at Vandy, Florida is hosting South Carolina. You mentioned Mississippi State. Auburn goes up to Como. That's another one where we'll see how good Missouri actually is if they can. I mean, they're at home, and it is early March, so that'll be a fun one too as well.
Well, I think that wraps us up. If you guys don't have any more comments, we appreciate you tuning in. Stick around for the Rydell Report with Andrew Rydell coming up after this. For Jake McKeever, I've been the fill-in from the pen, Matt Grissom. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.